Today I'll be going over my top 20 most favorite LEGO Star Wars minifigures ever created. Let's talk about it. So welcome back everyone to another LEGO Star Wars video. I did my top 20 most favorite LEGO Star Wars sets last week. You guys seem to really like that. It sparked a lot of discussion in the comments. So I figured I would do my top 20 most favorite LEGO Star Wars minifigures ever right now. And yeah, full disclaimer, unlike the set one, I actually do own every single one on this list. I probably own a total of, I would say roughly 600 to 700 individual, different LEGO Star Wars minifigures. So definitely a large pool to, choose from. Of course, guys, really quick, another thing I want to bring up is everything in this video is my own opinion. If you guys have a different list, definitely comment it down below. I'm very curious to see what some of your guys' favorite LEGO Star Wars minifigures are. But without further ado, guys, let's get into number 20. All right, moving on to number 20, we actually have the only one on this list that is probably pretty much only based off of nostalgia. I don't really think this minifigure holds up too well 14 years later, but we have the Clone Wars Anakin, the very first version. So this one right here, if you guys do know, my first LEGO set ever was the 2008 Anakin's Jedi Starfighter. So of course, this minifigure was pretty much my first minifigure in my collection ever. I think it holds a special place in my heart, and probably always will be. And for what it's worth, I think it definitely captured the appearance of them back then. One thing you guys will realize in this list, and kind of just overall, is I have no bad hatred towards any of the Clone Wars style minifigures. I think they all fit their time period really nice, and especially for the fact that we'll probably never have any of those minifigures remade just like that with the animated face prints. Definitely holds a special place in my heart. From that time era of 2008 through like say 2014. So there's number 20, guys, and really the only one on this list that's purely based off of nostalgia. Next up, guys, we got number 19, which this is a minifigure that I just feel like is really accurate, and I feel like there's really nothing much more LEGO can do to it, and definitely a fan favorite of mine. We have the Bosk, the new version, and the olive green color palette. So, of course, in the grand scheme of things, I feel like really the biggest thing maybe this minifigure's lacking is a little bit of arm printing, if you really want to go all out. But I think for 6 years ago, and I think for Bosk as an overall character, you really can't go too wrong with this. I'm a big fan of it, and, of course, kind of raised up in price right now. So, of course, it's always nice when your minifigures are worth a little bit more. It's nice when, say Bosk is a little bit more sought after now, and a lot of people kind of want him, and it's nice to know that I have him now. And nonetheless, I think very accurate and really not too much more LEGO can do to it. So there's my number 19. So moving on to number 18, guys, we have a pretty hot take here, I feel, but this is actually the OG Stormtrooper with leg printing. So I believe this one came out in the 2004 Imperial Inspection, and this is just truly a true epitome of a classic LEGO Star Wars minifigure, in my opinion. So I actually did not own this minifigure at all until a couple months ago. So I actually picked up, I think 4 of them off of Bricklink, and then also a friend of mine, sold me 4 more at Brick World Chicago. So out of nowhere, I have 8 of these guys right now, and this definitely just overall just works. I feel like, I think the older Stormtrooper style is way better as it sits compared to the newer style, let alone with the leg printing was definitely kind of a newer thing for back then, of course, on very few minifigures as a whole, let alone Star Wars minifigures. So, the Stormtrooper with leg printing is definitely just an all-time classic, I feel, and also, really good for its time and actually holds up a lot to today. And I think, this Stormtrooper here looks a lot better than the newer stuff. So, there's number 18. So number 17 kind of follows suit with that exact same kind of concept as the last one, being the Sand Red Battle Droid from Geonosis. So, of course, this is a 20-year-old minifigure right here. Is it the most accurate in retrospect? Probably not. But I think this is just another example of just what LEGO was doing back then. I feel like, early on in the Star Wars theme, and even all the way up until like 2014 or 2015, LEGO was taking chances. They were doing unique stuff. They were doing very cool stuff. And instead of just kind of upgrading and remaking the same stuff, maybe doing something cool here and there, they were doing a lot of cool stuff overall. So the Sand Red Battle Droid will always hold a special place in my heart. I have about, I think, actually 9 or 10 of these right now, so I'm pretty proud of that. And something where, again, the nostalgia helps it. I was not, collecting LEGO back when these were on shelves, but this was definitely a minifigure that even 10 years ago when I was making Geonosis mocks, I was trying my best to get the most of these, and sadly I only ended up with about 10 of them, and I wish I got more. But nonetheless, guys, 17 and 18, they are kind of two very, kind of good for their time minifigures, I feel. Back 20 years ago, these two minifigures I definitely think were very cool and to hold up to today's standards. So number 16 here will probably be no surprise to really anyone. If anything, it's probably a surprise that it's not higher up on my list, but in my opinion, it's a touch overrated for what it is, but I have to put this on my list for what it means for the LEGO company. So this is Darth the Revan, of course, the 2014 May 4th promo, and this is kind of, follows suit with what I was saying the last, couple minifigures, where, just think about it, guys, for 2014 time period, what what Darth Revan as a promo polybag truly means for the LEGO company as a whole is truly remarkable. You know, nowadays we're getting the same streamlined stuff. You know, we're not getting any minifigure polybags anymore, let alone we're definitely not getting Darth Revan, that's for sure. I mean, you know, we're going to be getting just OT and original classic stuff with really nothing, you know, too fancy going on there. So I think Darth Revan for 2014, granted they were making a few other Old Republic stuff back then, so it's not too out of the ordinary, but it just further kind of proves my point of how unique LEGO Star Wars was at one point, I feel, compared to now where we're really just getting the same streamlined stuff and kind of stuff we expect, which I'm not going to hate LEGO for that. I think LEGO's coming out with stuff, you know, in a timely manner, at least these days, but, you know, back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, LEGO was definitely doing some extra stuff, I feel, and Darth Revan being one of those. So moving on to number 15 right here, guys, we have the minifigure here that I feel is the true epitome of a classic LEGO Star Wars clone trooper, being the OG Kashyyyk Scout trooper from 2005. So this clone trooper, out of all of them, I feel like back then, when you look at it for a regular Star Wars fan or, you know, LEGO Star Wars fan, when you think of this minifigure, you just think of, you know, old days, you know, old classic Episode 3, 2005 sets, and that's why I put this one on here. And spoiler alert, there's not going to be any other old classic clones. You know, I definitely feel like in an alternate reality, you know, this list could have just been 20 different clone troopers, but I'm really giving LEGO the benefit of the doubt, and in my opinion, for what it's worth, I will say this right here, I think in the grand scheme of things, clone troopers are pretty overrated from LEGO. I think LEGO has a couple of them that you knock it out of the park with. I think a few are pretty lackluster, and overall, I think we got to give LEGO a lot more credit on some of these other unique minifigures, but nonetheless, there's number 15, the OG Kashyyyk Scout Trooper, definitely a true classic for clone troopers. So next up, we got number 14 right here, being the new Princess Leia in the slave outfit. So this one here, you know, was on my list for a few reasons. First off, I think, of course, we can all agree the minifigure looks absolutely, you know, beautiful in a figurative sense and a literal sense. You know, like it captures the true character from the movie very well. I mean, there's really nothing much more they could have done for the minifigure, I feel. And, you know, so that's one thing. And I feel like thinking back, again, when we're looking at today's standards, we all know LEGO will never remake that minifigure ever again. We all know that. I'm willing to, you know, die on that hill. I'm willing to put a $100 bet on it right now. We will never see Princess Leia in another slave outfit. Personally, you know, do I fully disagree with LEGO's choice of doing that? I do about 99%, but and I will try to say this right here for the last time. It kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier again. You know, 10 years ago, think about where LEGO Star Wars was, you know, allowing, you know, LEGO Star Wars to make a minifigure like this, you know, put it in a set with no problems. But nowadays, I feel like, you know, for the two reasons of it being a very accurate minifigure to begin with, and, you know, I think we'll never see a minifigure, you know, of Slave Leia ever again, where I feel like that one right there will forever kind of be a timeless classic, you know, for LEGO Star Wars. So next up, we have number 13, and this will definitely be my probably most controversial pick of this entire list. We have Phase 2 Captain Rex. So, like I was kind of saying a little bit earlier, in my humble opinion, I think most LEGO Star Wars clone troopers are overrated. I don't think they're bad minifigures, but I feel like the hype behind them is almost kind of ruining them, in my opinion. Not in a bad way. I love how, you know, people love LEGO Star Wars clone troopers. I love them myself. You know, I would love to be able to have hundreds and hundreds of LEGO Star Wars clone troopers. You know, I would love to be able to have every single clone trooper ever, you know, have 10 of them, have 10 Captain Rexes. But I feel like for what it's worth, for my personal enjoyment of that minifigure, that's definitely kind of ruined it a little bit. You know, too many people are wanting it, too badly. The price is getting pretty ridiculous. You know, a lot of people are faking it. A lot of people are making custom ones. Do I blame them? Not really. But I feel like overall, for what Phase 2 Rex is, I feel like it's getting a little out of hand, in my opinion. So, in my opinion, you know, it's still a great minifigure. I love it. I'm glad I have one. I feel like it would have been higher on my list probably 5 years ago. I definitely think it was. I made one of these videos back in 2020 early on. But I feel like definitely nowadays in today's standards, every minifigure above this, you know, right here, I feel like is better, and I would rather have my collection than Phase 2 Rex. So with the 12 spot, guys, we have the tan General Grievous from the Clone Wars. I put the tan one over the white one just mainly for the fact of, you know, I like the Clone Wars, you know, Grievous. I feel like a lot better than the Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith Grievous, of course. You know, back then in 2005, they weren't fully too sure what they were going to do with the, you know, with the character, and you know, he didn't really have too much screen time in, you know, Episode 3. But on the Clone Wars, definitely a lot more cool, you know, moments, and I think the tan colorway definitely suits him a lot better. And you know, nonetheless, again, you know, I'm a big prequel guy, I'm a big Clone Wars guy. You will definitely see that trend in the top, you know, 10 right here coming up. But nonetheless, tan Grievous, very cool minifigure. I think they knocked it out of the park. Really nothing much more they could do unless they want to start making new molds of the legs, of the arms, you know, stuff like that. But for as it sits, especially a minifigure that they came out with 10 years ago, I think pretty much a 10 out of 10 minifigure. And following up, guys, with the Clone Wars love, we have Pre Vizsla right here at number 11. This right here is another example of just kind of what they were doing back then. You know, sure, Pre-Vizsla was relevant, you know, 10 years ago at least. You know, he was in the Clone Wars. He was in, you know, quite a few important arcs in the Clone Wars. And, you know, they definitely knocked it out of the park. I think Pre-Vizsla, you know, I definitely think Pre-Vizsla is one of those where you can honestly say there's probably not a single thing they could have done differently to make that minifigure any better. If there is, leave it down below. Aside for, like, okay, coming out with a different Darksaber, that's one thing. That does not include the actual minifigure, though. Like, the Darksaber is its own separate piece. It's a weapon. It's not actually part of the character. But I think Pre-Vizsla, amazing. I'm glad I finally have one in my collection. I got one earlier this year. And granted, I have not actually looked at it since then. I've got it stuck in a bag with my Cloud City Boba Fett. And, you know, those guys have been underneath my coffee table since I bought them pretty much. But speaking of that, guys, let's move on to number 10, which is the OG Cloud City Boba Fett. This one right here, I'm going to put it at the nice solid 10 spot. I don't want to put it any higher just for the pure fact of, again, I agree. I think it is slightly overrated, and for what it's worth, if it weren't for the value of that minifigure, I feel like I would truthfully not love it as much. So I'll be 100% honest with that. You know, if the Cloud City Boba Fett was, say, only $200 instead of $2,000, I probably would have not bought it at the time I did. You know, sure, I can also argue I may have had it, you know, years prior to that if it was only, you know, $100, $200 minifigure. But for what it's worth, if it was not $2,000, I feel like my love for it would probably be, you know, coming down from a 10 to maybe like a 6.5 out of 10. You get what I'm saying? So for what it's worth, I don't want to put it too much higher because it's just purely kind of a financial thing for me. Although I do love the minifigure for what it means. It's obviously very cool to have a $2,000 Lego Star Wars minifigure. Of course, that's always going to be very awesome. But nonetheless, guys, I think a nice solid 10 spot for it is where I want to put it at. Let's get on to the top 9. So moving on to number 9, we actually have the Palpatine from Episode 3 in the silver robe outfit. So this came out in the Droid Tri-Fighter from 2014. And, you know, again, another minifigure that's just beautiful. You know, very accurate. You know, of course, Palpatine is an all-time favorite. I think this is the best version of Palpatine we've ever gotten. You know, whether you want to, you know, consider the, you know, the Emperor Palpatine ones or the Chancellor Palpatine ones, I think this one is the best one. The most accurate, the most unique, probably an outfit we'll never see again. And, you know, nonetheless, definitely just something where it looks like a premium product for what it is. And, you know, I definitely would not mind having it on display. And actually, I'm looking at it right now there on my display, and I fully agree. It's a beautiful minifigure. It's actually kind of, you know, the actual robe itself kind of has like metallic print on it, and it's actually kind of shining on the light over there. So I definitely think this is a very cool minifigure. Definitely the best Palpatine, and there's my number 9. So moving on to my 8 spot, this is probably a minifigure that most of you guys expected me to have on my list, if you guys kind of know me. Padme from Episode 2, the 2013 newer version. And you know, this is on my list for a few reasons, of course. You know, as it sits, you know, whether this minifigure ever came out or not, Padme is in my top 10 favorite Star Wars characters. Arguably, probably even my top 5. I know in the movies, sure, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, not too much character development for Padme herself, but I think how she was portrayed, and of course being Anakin's wife, you know, Anakin being my number 1 favorite Star Wars character, of course, Padme kind of has to bounce off that a little bit. You get what I'm saying? Like, I really do like Padme for that aspect, and I think, you know, I like them as a couple. I like Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen playing them together. So, nonetheless, Padme's always been in my top 10 favorite Star Wars characters. So, I think this is, again, definitely the best Padme we've ever gotten. Really nothing much more they could have done to her for that minifigure-wise. But what, you know, there's really no fault to the minifigure at all. You know, it's just the actual outfit in the movie is pretty plain itself. You can't really fault the minifigure for it, but just as is, there's not too much detail on it because there doesn't have to be. So I can't really put it above some of these other minifigures coming up that are more detailed than this, but there's my number 8, guys. So up next with the 7th spot, we actually have another clone trooper being the Clone Wars Phase 1 white clone. So this one right here is an all-time classic and nostalgic, you know, minifigure for myself. Right when I started collecting, of course, the 2009 Clone Walker Battle Pack will always be a forever classic. You know, I personally had quite a few of these guys back in the day, and luckily I'm kind of regrowing my collection. Now I think I've got about 60 or 70 of these guys, so I'm very happy with that. Eventually I want to keep on growing it up. And, you know, as much as I was saying clone troopers are overrated, I will openly admit that, and I'm not really trying to army build my clone army too much. There's definitely a few clones out there where it's like, look, I'm not going to be paying $100 per shock trooper just to say I've got 10 of them. You get what I'm saying? Like, that's just a waste of money. But for what it's worth, you know, knock on wood, these Clone Wars clones right now are only worth about $6 to $7 each, and I'm hoping to continually just kind of build up my army. And, you know, the Clone Wars Phase 1 clones, those are the clones that eventually I hope to have, you know, 200, 300, maybe even 500 of. I would much rather have those over some of the other ones. You know, even the new 501st clones, very overrated. You know, everyone has them. You know, understandably, you know, sure, the set's on the shelves, everyone loves them. I think the 501st clones are great. They're not bad minifigures, but, you know, I would much rather have 500 of these old clone troopers compared to 500 501st clones. So that's why it's my number 7, guys. And, you know, again, I can't put it too much higher because there's not really too much detail on it, but it's very accurate for what it is. You know, sure, looking back retrospectively, maybe some leg printing, but other than that, there's my number 7. So number 6 actually has quite a few reasons going for it as to why it's my number 6. That being the shirtless Darth Maul minifigure. So this one right here, again, I'll list off a couple things real quick as to why it's one of my favorite minifigures. So first off, of course, Darth Maul is in my top 5 favorite Star Wars characters ever. I think this is the best Darth Maul we've ever gotten. And then also, guys, another thing I'll bring up, like I kind of brought with some of these other minifigures, is retrospectively, look, 10 years ago, this minifigure I feel like just means so much for LEGO because they're not doing stuff like this anymore. I mean, looking back, quite frankly, why did LEGO even make this minifigure? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't even know what they would have made this minifigure for, other than them actually just kind of thinking to themselves, hey, look, let's make a cool minifigure, a badass little minifigure, put it in a poly bag, give it out, make it a little promo, and overall make a very cool product. Other than that, I can't really think of other, other reasons why they made this minifigure, and they sure as heck won't make this minifigure ever again. I mean, do any of us really think we'll ever see a shirtless Darth Maul ever again? I don't think so. And again, it's got arm printing on there. Came in a nice little promo poly bag, always a fan favorite of mine. So for those reasons alone, I mean, this minifigure's got to be in my top 10. And quite frankly, thinking about this, actually, it probably could have actually switched with my 5th place one right here, which I'm moving on to number 5, guys. We actually have the Ahsoka from season 3. So actually, now that I'm looking at this and thinking about it, let's actually swap the Ahsoka and Darth Maul from 6th to 5th right here. But nonetheless, the Ahsoka Season 3 is either my 5th or 6th spot. And, the reason why this minifigure is so cool to me is, I think it's the best Ahsoka ever. Still room to improve. I really will admit that. Again, I don't mind the animated face styles at all. But I think, better than the original Padawan one. I think the new, the new 2020 style Ahsoka, again, it looks cool. It's pretty accurate. In my opinion, a little overrated. I can't really put too many new minifigures on my list quite yet. Just for the fact that they are brand new. I haven't really been able to sink into being my favorite yet. So I think this Ahsoka, for what it's worth, is probably the best one out of the older ones. Sure as heck better than the Rebels one. The more I look at that Rebels one, I really don't understand at all why people like that minifigure. But that's a whole different topic for a different video. But yeah, guys, so number 5 or number 6, whatever one you guys want to consider that, Ahsoka is that one right there. So moving into the top 4 right here, which is pretty much unchangeable. 4th place, we have Phase 1 Captain Rex. So the last clone trooper for the list. And, Phase 1 Captain Rex is on this list mainly for the fact of a little bit of nostalgia. I really do think, Phase 1 Rex is pretty underrated. You guys will kind of see a trend on this. The overrated stuff I'm not really too big of a fan of. I think in the grand scheme of things, it kind of just clouds your mind. No pun intended on the Cloud City, but kind of clouds your mind and kind of makes you just think about the minifigure more highly than you probably actually do. And, Phase 1 Rex, though, I think subjectively is a really cool minifigure. Probably not better detail-wise than Phase 2 Rex, of course, but, Phase 1 Rex was in the original ATT I got back in 2008 for, Christmas. I'll throw up the picture if I have it, but, so, he's been in my collection for literally like 14 years now. Captain Rex has always been a fan favorite of mine. I watched, Clone Wars back in the day, like literally when it first came out. I watched the Clone Wars movie on, Cartoon Network and everything else. So, Phase 1 Captain Rex as a whole, let alone the minifigure, definitely has a special place in my heart, and there's my number 4. Guys, so moving into the top 3 right here, which I think are the all-time greatest LEGO Star Wars minifigures ever made. Number 3, we have Queen Amidala. So, again, going back, Padme is one of my favorite, Star Wars characters ever. I think LEGO knocked this minifigure out of the park. I think if you're going for pure accuracy and, just overall, I mean, what can they change about this minifigure? Does anyone actually have any idea what they can change about it? Because I have none of them. I'm looking at a picture right now. I'm actually looking at my actual one up there, and this is crazy. I'm so happy I got it a couple years ago before the price went up. I got it for like $40, and now she's worth like $200. So very excited about that. I think this is an all-time great LEGO Star Wars minifigure, just for what it is. Again, it also represents just something where, I don't know. I personally just don't see LEGO doing that type of stuff anymore. And I think if they would have done it differently, I really don't think we're ever going to get another Queen Amidala with that little dress piece at the bottom. If anything, it might just be a regular 2x2x2 kind of curved slope for her dress. But I think that's an all-time great minifigure. Fantastic detail, super accurate, and Padme being one of my favorite Star Wars characters ever. She had to make it in the top 3, and that is definitely, without a doubt, my 3rd place one, uninterchangeable. And let's move on to the top 2 though. So number 2 right here is actually a pretty expensive one, and one that people can say is maybe overhyped, but in my opinion, it's not overhyped because I've had this one since the the actual early days of it being out. That being the Chrome Vader. So already I've said this quite a few times in the past couple months. So I actually did get a Chrome Vader back in 2009 out of an Assassin Droid Battle Pack. So my cousin got me one down in Georgia. I went down there. She knew I was collecting Lego. She bought me one. I cracked it open on our living room floor, and there Chrome Vader was. Of course, back then I was 8 years old. I opened them up. I've had them in a little case ever since. Luckily, luckily I took pretty good care of him. At least in the past couple years, he's been, you know, nicely put away and really kind of untouched. And luckily he survived it pretty much, you know, back in my early childhood days. But nonetheless, you know, Chrome Vader, a very special place in my heart. And it even works out more perfectly that, you know, I would have much rather had Chrome Vader over, say, a Finch Dallo. You know, got lucky with this compared to, say, a Finch Dallo or like a smooth hair Leia. Because, you know, again, Anakin is my number one all-time favorite Star Wars character. So having a Chrome Vader, you know, version of, you know, Darth Vader or Anakin Skywalker technically, you know, is just remarkable. And I'm so glad I actually got it back in the day. You know, not too many people can say that. Like, I don't know anyone else that got a Chrome Vader back in 2009. And so this minifigure here, special place in my heart. You know, all-time great. You know, we're never going to get one again. And, you know, that is my number 2. Moving on to number 1, guys, this video is getting pretty long, so I want to kind of cut this short, but when someone pretty much says, you know, what's your favorite LEGO Star Wars minifigure ever, when even I kind of think about it myself, I've always thought this for the past couple years, and this is just kind of the true epitome of what I considered as being a very nice LEGO Star Wars minifigure, and just overall being my favorite. You know, it's not too highly priced, it's not overrated, it's not underrated, it's not a clone trooper, but we have the Palpatine's Arrest Anakin Skywalker. So, you know, very simple again, Anakin Skywalker is my number 1 favorite Star Wars character ever. That will never change. He has been my favorite for the past 15 years I've watched Star Wars. And, you know, this minifigure here, the best Anakin ever. They did such a good job with him. You know, every single minifigure out of that set is beautiful, including, you know, this Palpatine's Arrest Anakin himself. And nonetheless, you know, when I think of LEGO Star Wars minifigures, like, this is just what I think of. Just like a classic LEGO Star Wars minifigure. You know, again, not overpriced, not underpriced, you know, right on the money of a good value. You know, just a classic Jedi, you know, classic character. You know, it's a simple little cape, hairpiece, torso, legs, head. You know, nothing too fancy with it. No, you know, no new molds or anything. And, you know, this minifigure here is just kind of, you know, what I truly think, you know, LEGO Star Wars' number 1 character is, at least for me. So, nonetheless, guys, there's the entire list. Again, this is like a 30-minute video right now. I believe it's like 36 minutes of raw footage. So, that was a long list, guys. A lot longer than I thought. So, without further ado, guys, let's close off the video. Yeah, guys, nonetheless, there's my top 20 LEGO Star Wars minifigures ever made. I did the set video about a week ago. If you guys want to go check that out, I'll leave it at the end of the video. But if there's any other, you know, favorite videos you guys want me to do, I'll leave them down below, and I'll definitely do more of these. I like giving my opinion. And as always, you know, leave your thoughts down below. How do you guys think my list is? And leave your list down below. You know, leave your top 5. If you guys want to leave your top 20, go ahead. You know, I love reading comments. I try to reply back to most of them or leave them a heart. I do read every comment, that's for sure. If you guys leave a comment, I 99% of the time read it. Unless it gets, you know, put into spam for some reason, you know, I 99% of the time read your comments and, you know, try to reply back if it is replyable. And nonetheless, I appreciate everything. You know, I appreciate the comments, the likes, everything. So definitely go enter the giveaway too. The last video I did was a Clone Wars set giveaway. Definitely go enter that. It's free to enter. Probably takes about 5 minutes in total to enter, and it's 100% free and international. But yeah, with all that being said, guys, let's close off this video. This video is way too long, I think, and I'll see you guys on the next one, guys. Bye, guys, and stay safe.